Hello everyone, this is Troy from Dashcam Owners Australia. Today we're doing another dashcam review. Today we'll be taking a look at the VicoVation Marcus II. The Marcus II is the newest in the VicoVation range. It's coming in at about an entry level in their range, so it's got basic features but it's not their top of the line camera. Now with this camera it does have high dynamic range and wide dynamic range in 1080p at 30 frames per second. And at 720p you get 60 frames per second and 30 frames per second. Camera supports up to a 32GB micro SD card and comes with the following. Now starting at the top left we have our basic startup guide, followed by our user manual. Top right is our suction cup mount. Just below that is the 3M sticky tape mount. Going to bottom left is our 4-meter power cable. In the middle, our warranty statement, and bottom right, the camera itself. Now we'll take a few different looks at the camera itself, just so you can get an idea of what size it is. Now as you can see from front on, this camera is almost identical to the rest of the Marcus range. Basically the only different thing here is that coloured ring on this camera to identify it as the Marcus II. On the left hand side of the camera, we have our micro SD card slot that supports up to 32GB. Class 10 is recommended. Now on the bottom we just have our basic little serial number and details for the camera. Now on the right hand side, starting at the top, we have our mini USB charging port, and of course for connecting to the computer. We have our mini HD out for connecting to a TV, and at the bottom we have our optional GPS connection. If you want to add things like your speed and your lane departure warning system, that's an optional extra on this camera. Here is what the camera looks like with the included 3M double-sided tape mount. This is the smallest of the two available mounts. Now I'll show you what it looks like with the included suction mount, which does look absolutely massive in that picture. It's probably just the angle more than anything, but it is quite large with that included mount. And just for a comparison shot, this is the Marcus II compared to the Marcus V dual front unit. So they have kept it quite smaller compared to the other Marcus units. Now moving on, we have the standard splash screen menu system for the Marcus units. I'm not going to go in depth with this today. It's almost identical to what I did on the Marcus V. If you want to see the full menu system, you can go back and have a look at that review. Just included here is the firmware version that I was using when I did this review. Now here's the camera just mounted in a truck. I have had this running in a truck for about a week and a half, and then I used it in my own car for a bit, as you can see. In a truck, it is not overly imposing. I'd say it's a very good size if you're in a larger vehicle. Now, as I show you some video footage from this camera, I'll remind you, this may not represent the original quality due to YouTube's compression. Alright, here we go. Standard daytime footage, swinging into the sun there. See how quickly the camera adjusts to the different lighting conditions there. It's doing a very nice job. And as you can see, it's pulling a lot of detail here. Very clear picture overall, lots of very intense detail from all the shops, cars, etc. Now recently VicoVation updated their range to all feature a parking mode. This is useful for basically someone bumps into your car while you're out doing your shopping. It detects the bump, records it. Now this feature, basically the camera goes into parking mode within 5 minutes of detecting the car not moving, so the onboard G sensor will do that. The only thing with this is, though, it needs constant power for this to work, so you need the camera to have power at all times, not just via the cigarette lighter. But a useful feature nonetheless for people who are after it. Now in a moment I will change over to some nighttime footage so you get an idea of what this camera is like during the darker hours. And I must say it does quite a nice job. I'll also stop talking for a few moments just to give you an idea of what the onboard microphone is like on this camera. Starting now. Alrighty, here we are. So I'll just say a few words so you get an idea of what the microphone on this particular camera is like. Hopefully it's coming through fairly clearly right now. And there you have it, nice and clear in those conditions. However, I must mention that if you are like me and like your music loud in the car, The camera doesn't quite cope so well with loud music blaring on in the background it did tend to sort of distort the audio a bit with the stereo turned up, so just a point to mention there. Now that we've seen what this camera can do in a relatively well lit street, we'll take a look at a darker back street. As you can see here, we've only got the odd street lights and the oncoming vehicles, but the camera still does a very respectable job considering how dark it is at this time of the morning lately. Now, if you're interested in this camera, there is a link to it down in the description on the Dashcams Australia website where you can purchase it. It sells for $220 basically, and if you use the coupon code DCOA, you will get 5% off, so it takes about $11 off the end price there for you. Now we'll just go to my final thoughts on this camera and my likes and dislikes. Starting with my likes for this particular camera, the addition of parking mode is a very nice feature. It's good to see that this is starting to become more commonplace with cameras. The high dynamic range day and night quality, it really does an excellent job both day and night for picking up detail. And the simplicity of this camera, it's very easy to use. Really, even if you're a novice to these sort of things, you shouldn't have a lot of trouble setting up one of these cameras. Now as for my dislikes with this particular camera, nothing overly serious here. My still probably biggest complaint, if that's a complaint, is the size of these cameras. They're not exactly discreet. However, if you're using one of these cameras in like a truck, I'd say it's a very good size for a larger vehicle, but small cars, probably not so much. Also, the lack of support for higher capacity SD cards is a bit of a disappointment. I hope you enjoyed this review and thank you for watching. Have a good day.